The remaining years of my life seem short and are coming soon. I thought I would live alone in solitude, unnoticed and unneeded by anyone. Especially in the bustling cities, the elderly are often seen as troublesome. It's a sad thing. Yet, I turned away from the loneliness, resigned to it being just the way things are. When a boy appeared, extending his small hand to me, I never imagined that meeting this boy would drastically change the remaining years of my life. My name is John Sanders. I am an energetic 85-year-old man. I have no children, and not long ago, I was preceded in death by my beloved wife. Now, I live a lonely life alone. My wife and I farmed for many years. It takes a lot of effort to cultivate crops on a vast piece of land. Daily care is essential for growing crops, and of course, there is no such thing as a day off. Even so, my wife and I both loved farming. But as we got older, there were limits to how much we could push ourselves. And when my wife fell ill, we decided to give it up completely. That's why we moved to the city, to make it easier for her to get to the hospital. However, she had less time left than we thought. She passed away before she could settle into the new environment, despite the treatment. I was devastated by the shock and loss of her passing, and it took me a while to recover. One day, the person who was always by my side was suddenly gone forever. No matter how much I wished, I could never see her again. Loneliness truly describes what I am feeling now. Standing alone in an unfamiliar place, I was utterly lost. After a while, I realized I needed to close a bank account that was in my wife's name, so I went to the bank. The local bank we used to frequent knew us well. The tellers would greet me with a "Hey, John, welcome," and attend to me immediately. But the city bank was much larger and had far more customers. With several service counters, it was quite different from the small town bank, and I didn't even know where to start. I was frantically looking around, feeling overwhelmed. Then, a young male teller happened to pass by, so I decided to ask him for help. The nameplate of the male teller, whom I hastily detained, read Nathan. Nathan looked me over from head to toe with a frown of annoyance, clearly bothered as he hurried to understand what I needed. I need to close my wife's bank account. As I explained my situation and showed him the passbook, Nathan blatantly grimaced as he glanced at the balance. The balance in my wife's passbook was only a few $100s. Since I was handling all the expenses from my account, my wife's account had practically not been used, and I had forgotten about its existence.
It's just a little bit, so there's no need to rush, right?
Nathan said, tossing a document containing the required paperwork to bring at me carelessly.
Come back when you have everything ready.
He added brusquely, and walked away. It felt as if he was treating me differently based on the balance in the account. I was completely caught off guard. A rustic appearance and a sun-kissed complexion from working in agriculture. Moreover, the bank account I have only contains a meager amount of money. Clearly, he saw me as just a bothersome old man from the countryside. Since moving to the city, I had been snubbed and even hissed at just for walking around, but this was the most blatant case yet. I guess the elderly are just in the way? Maybe I am a bit of a bother. I can't keep up with the quick thinking or the fast pace of conversation like the young people can. But being underestimated because I am old was unbearably frustrating. I was down for a few days after that incident, but finding a favorite coffee shop in the next town lifted my spirits a bit. Now, one of my daily pleasures is slowly savoring a cup of coffee at that cafe. However, to get there, I need to take a bus, which is a bit inconvenient. It's a bit too far to walk. However, even when using the bus, with my unsteady legs, it takes time for me to climb the steps or to sit down. I often get obvious cues from other passengers in a hurry, and there have been times when an impatient driver started suddenly, causing me to fall. No adult ever reached out to help me during such moments.
Just a slow old man.
I can feel people thinking it through their glances. But one day, a child gently took my hand. He's about the height of a late elementary school boy, and his name is Luke Wilson. Without ever making a sour face, Luke always silently lends me a hand. After school, he usually takes this bus to go to the store his father runs.
My mom died, and it's boring and lonely going home alone. That's why, if you're on the bus at the same time, I'll always help,
He told me with a brave smile. Seeing him like that, I felt an urge to hug him impulsively. Such a pure-hearted boy. I never had children, but in that moment, I clearly thought, I want to protect him. Then one day, as usual, I got on the bus, but Luke was nowhere to be seen. Thinking it was strange, I looked around the bus and found him at the very back, hunched over and looking down. I hurried over to talk to him, but the voice that came back was feeble. When I took his hand, I could tell he had a high fever just from the touch. Surprised, but knowing I couldn't just leave him, I got off with him at his usual stop and took him to his father's store. Luke's father, Kevin Wilson, runs a cozy bakery on the ground floor of a mixed-use building. The atmosphere is welcoming, and above all, the delicious aroma of bread fills this happy space. After delivering Luke with a high fever, his father was extremely grateful, and from then on, I started visiting Kevin's bakery every day with Luke. Kevin's bakery has a small eat-in area where I can also enjoy my favorite coffee. The bread recommended by Luke and Kevin is consistently delicious. And above all, the conversations with Luke make me forget my loneliness. Being with the lively Luke makes me feel younger. For the first time since coming to the city, I felt like I found a safe place. Luke is also delighted to be able to talk about school with me.
Work has been so busy that I haven't been able to give him much attention, so I'm really grateful,
Kevin remarked, watching Luke and me with a smile. The bread is soft and delicious. I once told Kevin, the bread in this store really is delicious. No favoritism. However, he shook his head regretfully.
I used to make even better bread, but I had to switch the flour I was using because the farm I got it from stopped producing suddenly, and the taste has changed.
Sue's Farm, a long-standing wheat farm he's been closely affiliated with, suddenly ceased production. Consequently, he's had to reluctantly source similar flour from other regions. However, despite all the trial and error, he laments that he just can't replicate the taste of the past. That's too bad. I would have liked to have tried the previous bread. I said this with a lonely smile.
I too miss the taste of the bread made with that flour.
Luke's father, Kevin, had a troubled look. The next day, as usual, I went to the bakery with Luke and was relaxing inside when a bell rang signaling a customer's arrival. Looking up, I saw 2 or 3 burly men in suits, who seemed out of place in a bakery, standing around Kevin in an intimidating manner. Kevin looked troubled as he talked with these men, and after the suited men left, He sighed deeply, appearing utterly exhausted. I was concerned by his worn-out appearance, but felt that it wasn't my place as an old man to interfere in business matters. Despite my frustration, all I could do was quietly observe. While worried about Kevin, I had finally gathered all the documents needed to close my wife's bank account and headed to the bank again. Perhaps because it was payday, the bank was incredibly crowded when I entered. I picked the wrong day to come. However, amidst the busy bank tellers, I spotted one who seemed idle and took the opportunity to approach him. It was Nathan, the young teller who had assisted me before. Seeing me, Nathan's face said, "You're back again," as if I was a nuisance.
It's busy today. Grab a number.
He snapped, then walked away. What's a number? Not knowing what he meant, I looked around for a while until I noticed other customers picking up pieces of paper from a machine near the entrance. I did the same. Relieved to have gotten what I now knew was a number ticket, I sat down nearby. However, I had no idea what purpose this number served. After waiting 2 hours, I've taken a number, but how long am I supposed to wait? Growing skeptical about the lack of progress, I sought out Nathan again and asked him. Then he looked at the number ticket I offered and said,
Old folks have nothing but time. Right, just sit quietly and wait.
He snickered through his nose. Confused and troubled, I finally asked a woman at the counter.
Your number was called quite a while ago and was canceled since you didn't show. Please take a new number and wait again.
She instructed. I finally understood that the numbers were being called out by an automated voice. My hearing isn't what it used to be, and I couldn't catch my number being called amidst the noise. Do I really have to start all over? As I felt lost, my frustration with Nathan for giving me dismissive information slowly turned into anger. I took a new number and, without thinking, glanced at the TV in the floor area. The building displayed was familiar. It housed Kevin's bakery. Why? Was there an incident or a fire? A feeling of dread washed over me as I watched the news ticker, which revealed that the mixed-use building was being pressured for evacuation due to plans for constructing a new arcade. However, fearing that the arcade would disrupt public morals, the local residents had started a protest movement. It seems that the bakery is the last remaining tenant. Luke's father, Kevin, appeared on TV saying,
I want to continue my business here.
As he made an emotional plea. So, those men in suits who came the other day were here to discuss eviction. I recall the serious faces and intimidating demeanor of those men. As I was lost in thought, another hour had passed. I didn't even know if my number had been called or not. At this point, it didn't matter anymore. My purpose had changed. At this moment, I made a certain determination. Just then.
Hey, old man, how long are you going to sit here? Can't you hear your number being called? If you're hard of hearing, just say so clearly. This isn't your living room. Just sitting here doing nothing is a nuisance.
Nathan stormed over, yelling at me without caring about the other customer stares. My needs have changed. Could you please call the branch manager? I asked him calmly while looking at his face.
You think I can call the branch manager for just closing a small account?
Not for that issue. I'm here to close a $50 million account.
What?
Nathan, who had been arguing aggressively, suddenly became speechless and stunned.
This old man can't possibly have that kind of money.
to him who tried to take it as a joke. I showed my passbook, which I had brought by chance. It was filled with zeros, clearly showing a total balance of $50 million. Seeing this, Nathan's face went pale, and he hurried to fetch the branch manager. The branch manager appeared, sweating and with a humble demeanor, as I recounted the poor treatment I had received from Nathan. It's clear that keeping $50 million in this bank is not worthwhile. I'll find a better use for it. Being made to wait helped me see what I really need to do. I added with a mix of honesty and sarcasm. A little payback like this shouldn't be a problem. Nathan turned pale upon hearing this.
Please reconsider this.
The branch manager was repeatedly apologizing. Later, it was discovered that there had been numerous complaints about Nathan in the past, and he was demoted to a branch in a remote area. The branch manager was also demoted due to lack of leadership. As for me, I used the $50 million from the account closure to purchase the building housing the bakery. I offered a price much higher than the arcade developers, and the transaction went surprisingly smoothly. Now, Kevin's bakery will no longer be threatened with eviction and can continue operating as before. Kevin, who couldn't possibly afford to reopen the store, had planned to give up and close down for good if forced out of this location. He expressed gratitude to me repeatedly, but then he asked why I would go out of my way to help him, even though we're not family. The answer is simple. Having moved to the unfamiliar city, I was treated as a nuisance every day because I was an elderly person. Among all this, only Luke reached out to me. I can't forget the soft, small hand that supported me that day. I just wanted to protect Luke and his father's bakery from being taken away. And this might be a coincidence, but the flour that the bakery used before was actually made by my wife and me. The Sue and Sue's farm is derived from my wife's name, Susan. It was named after her because she loved bread so much. Kevin showed up, grateful that he used the wheat we grew, insisting it had to be that wheat and no other. Could one possibly remain indifferent to this without feeling some sort of connection? I couldn't just let the bakery go under. That $50 million came from selling the vast land we used to grow wheat on. With no children and having outlived my wife, I had been pondering what to do with that $50 million. Ultimately, I felt like I made the best use of it and reported so to my wife in spirit. Afterward, I renovated the bakery's building, turned the second floor into a place for Kevin and Luke, and made the third floor my residence. Now, I no longer need to take the bus to the store, and Luke doesn't have to feel lonely after school.
From now on, we're always together, Grandpa.
Luke said gleefully, bouncing around happily next to me. At my age, to have a son or grandson is quite something. I felt like I was living in a dream. Kevin once told me that Luke's kindness is deeply influenced by his mother's words.
If you see someone sick or in trouble, talk to them and lend a hand. Mom lived my life, being helped by many people.
She had told Luke before she passed away from her illness. It must have been this that made Luke unable to resist helping me. To receive such happiness from this connection, Kevin cried, expressing his gratitude repeatedly. But the one who should be saying thanks is me. Aging with a short life ahead? I never imagined that when my wife passed away, I'd spend my remaining years in such a wonderfully enriching environment. Life is unpredictable, no matter how old you are, and I savored this happiness.